Of all the Cold War secrets, Operation Mockingbird is perhaps the most astounding and revealing one that really exposes the tight interrelationship between the intelligence establishment in the United States and the media. The declassified documents and testimonies have finally pieced together the veil of secrecy over this operation, piece by piece, revealing a complex web of manipulation, control, and propaganda that had a profound impact on public perception at home and abroad. This operation was part of a broad strategy of psychological warfare, which shows how in the name of national security, the line between truth and propaganda was allowed to blur. Operation Mockingbird, Cold War Conspiracy. Operation Mockingbird was born during the early years of the Cold War, a time when both the United States and the Soviet Union were deep into a global ideological, military and technological rivalry. The fear of communism at home and abroad led to increasingly aggressive and covert strategies to fight perceived threats by the US government. It was in this context that the Central Intelligence Agency, established in 1947, started considering media as one of the instruments to achieve its objectives of psychological warfare. Records suggest that Wisner, most powerful during the initial years of the CIA, led the operation initiated in the late 1940s. Wisner has been put in charge of the Office of Policy Coordination, the branch of the CIA devoted to covert operations. Under his leadership, the OPC began recruiting American journalists, writers, and media executives to work as agents of influence. The goal was to shape both domestic and international public opinion in favorable American images and to dispel communist propaganda. Mechanics of media manipulation. Operation Mockingbird was a multifaceted operation to influence the media. The CIA forged ties with major news organizations in this country, including newspapers, magazines, radio, and television networks. Reporters who worked either directly for the CIA or were otherwise on the payroll of the spy agency as informants and operatives planted stories, disseminated disinformation, or spiked unfavorable news. This operation actually included infiltration of the American press in one of its most significant aspects. Prominent journalists and media executives, most notably from such influential vehicles as the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Time magazine, were reportedly recruited to present the CIA's line, while some knew they were agents of influence, and others unknowingly served that function. The reach of the CIA extended beyond the United States, as the agency worked toward molding foreign media around the world. This global operation involved placing articles in foreign newspapers, creating fake news stories, and funding anti-communist publications. The goal of this was very simple: to make sure that the American narrative dominated the information landscape of the globe. American journalism, the sphere of influence. The extent of influence the CIA had on American journalism during the Cold War is hard to quantify fully. Yet the evidence surfaced so far depicts a sorry tale. Documents declassified in recent times reveal the overpowering clout that the agency cast over what was printed or broadcast in the press. For instance, through its relations with top journalists, the CIA could decide how the story of the Korean War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the Vietnam War unfolded. Beyond this, Operation Mockingbird used its influence to help sell and deflate the prospects of certain political figures. In other words, the CIA wanted to further bolster leaders that were sympathetic to American interests, while discrediting those perceived as genuine threats. This possible manipulation of public perception had serious implications for the democratic process because, at times, voters were often unaware that the information they received was being carefully contrived through the intelligence community. Perhaps one of the most infamous exemplifications of such media manipulation was the implication of the CIA in covering up its involvement in the overthrow of foreign governments. For instance, during the 1953 Iranian coup, which saw the regime of Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh fall, and that of Guatemala in 1954, which overthrew President Jacobo Arbenz, the agency particularly played an important role. In both instances, the American press was used to justify such interventions through the branding of leaders as communist sympathizers who would cause a dislodgement of the US interests. The Church Committee, bringing out the truth. The entire operation of Mockingbird started to see the light of day during the 1970s with the Watergate scandal and increasing public mistrust of the government. In 1975, the United States Senate established the Select Committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities, commonly referred to as the Church Committee, after its chairman, Senator Frank Church. The committee was given the task to study abuses by intelligence agencies including the CIA, FBI, and NSA. Domestic surveillance on a massive scale, along with illegal activities and covert operations, were some of the things exposed during the investigations of the CIA by the Church Committee. It exposed something as shocking as Operation Mockingbird, where active manipulation of the media by the agency was substantiated. The final report of the committee mentioned the full extent of the CIA press control when it stated that it had exercised a pervasive influence over the media. The results stemming from the Church Committee created quite an uproar with the public, calling for reform. The CIA responded that active journalists were no longer used as agents, and that it had established specific safeguards to prevent such abuses in the future. As a matter of fact, many scoffed at these assurances, believing the agency did not stop its meddling with the media but simply changed strategy. The legacy of Operation Mockingbird, lingering shadows. The shadow of Operation Mockingbird continued to fall on American journalism and the intelligence community alike. This whole operation was a stark reminder of the potential dangers of governmental intermeddling in the press and the cardinal importance of a free and independent media. These operations continue to fuel the debates that have been ongoing since the revelation concerning the CIA and other intelligence agencies' role in shaping public perception and democratic processes. Since the years of the Church Committee's investigation, a raft of accusations has been raised regarding the intelligence community continuing its manipulation of the media. The blunt practices of Operation Mockingbird might have been abandoned, critics say, but more subtle forms of influence have taken their place. For instance, there is questionably the use of think tanks, public relations firms, and social media in order to shape public opinion in such a manner that will be for the benefit of the government. But it does raise some very important questions about journalistic ethics. The complicity of top journalists and news organizations in Operation Mockingbird undermined the credibility of the press and contributed to the climate of distrust so prevalent today. Revelation of the operation did lead to calls for more transparency and accountability in the media, along with a reawakened interest in journalistic ethics. Contemporary echoes, media manipulation in the digital age. Lessons from Operation Mockingbird are most apt in today's digital world, where the lines between news, propaganda, and entertainment continue to blur. The rise of social media and a proliferation of online news sources have created new avenues for state and non-state actors alike to shape public perception. The use of bots, trolls, and disinformation campaigns has emerged as a staple of modern psychological warfare, echoing strategies from the time of Operation Mockingbird. For instance, the revelations of the interference carried out by Russia in the 2016 US presidential election would bring into sharp focus the threat of foreign powers to media manipulation that still existed. Seemingly, fake news, targeted ads, and manipulated social media targeting to influence voters build the credibility of how the tactics of psychological warfare may have evolved, but most definitely have not disappeared. But in relation to this, the story of Operation Mockingbird acts like an allegory of caution in the sense of information power and an alert for vigilance about the integrity of the press. Above all, it is a call to media literacy and critical thinking at a time when truth is repeatedly occluded by an avalanche of competing narratives. Ethical considerations and the role of the press. Operation Mockingbird also raises profound ethical questions about the role of the press in a democratic society. The complicity of journalists in the operation, whether intended or not, only emphasizes further the potential of media for acting as an instrument of propaganda. It dissolves boundaries separating journalism from intelligence work in a way that creates serious risks both for the credibility of the press and for public confidence in the media. It is an operation that challenges the ideal of journalistic objectivity and independence. The ease with which the press can be co-opted by powerful interests evidences the way in which it can easily cease to function as a watchdog of government power. Its ethical implications continue to reverberate in contemporary debates about the relationship among the media, the government, and the public. There are, therefore, a series of calls to ensure greater safeguards are in place so as to guarantee the protection of the independence of the press from the aftermath of the operation. These entail ensuring that there is transparency in the relationships between journalists and government agencies, coupled with efforts toward the promotion of ethical practices in journalism. The operation also showcases the need for an intensive, assorted press that could withstand manipulation and ensure correct, forthright information on its end to the public. A legacy of distrust. It is a legacy of mistrust. Mistrust of government, mistrust of media, and mistrust of those institutions that ought to stand watch against abuses of power. The operation was a patent display of the extent to which the US government went to control the narrative and mold public perception during the Cold War. It also opened up vulnerabilities within the media, which was at once target and tool of the intelligence community. In the decades since the operation came to light, the relationship between the media and the government has remained contentious. The addition of new technologies and further polarization in the media landscape have only increased the challenges of a free and independent press. The story of Operation Mockingbird reminds one of the importance of a watchful and skeptical public one that demands responsibility from the government and the press. The legacy continues, Operation Mockingbird and the public imagination. The story of Operation Mockingbird inspires the public imagination for what it is as an event, but also for the eternal struggle over information. The story has thus created numerous books, documentaries, and conspiracy theories. This interest underlines the sensationalistic attitude towards one single idea. The media can be manipulated by invisible hands. While the sensationalism of Operation Mockingbird was rampant, the core of it really held a truth. Under the guise of the US government through the CIA, there had been a deliberate, calculated manipulation of the media, and subsequently, the shaping of public opinion. This is a very far-reaching implication regarding how we comprehend the work of the press in this country, and the lengths to which those in power will go in order to keep that power. The cost of control. Operation Mockingbird serves as a disconcerting reminder of the risks implicit in unrestrained government authority and the need for a free, independent press in a democratic society. Exposure of the operation showed the lengths to which the US government would go to use the media in advancing its Cold War aims. It also underlined the vulnerabilities of the press, tool and target of the intelligence community. The aftermath of Operation Mockingbird continues into modernity as we wrestle with the modern challenge of media manipulation in the digital age. It is a function which apportions a lesson concerning the power of information and vigilance necessary to protect the integrity of the press. It speaks volumes about the importance of transparency, accountability, and ethical journalism in a world where truth is shrouded by an avalanche of competing narratives. Thank you for spending time with us through Spookscope today. Feel free to share your knowledge and wisdom in the comment section, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends and family. Until next time, my dear spooker, stay curious,